that it's time to start the show, and we gotta start the show. And we're starting the show. Good morning! It's Poetry Morning. It is good to see Fortune in the house. Welcome to the Poetry Studio again, because you had no idea if you've been here before. And thank you as always for your support. This morning I didn't put a poll up. Probably should have put a poll up. Sorry, just switching over the screens because I don't really want to work on any of my projects this morning. I would prefer to work on something. It's kind of a level of discipline to keep on my projects, and I'm comfortable with doing that most days. But I also just like the idea of sometimes just diving in and milling around new ideas. And if there was a word of the day for today, it'd be ideas. I've been hard at work in terms of trying to find some revenue building opportunities. Just doing some personal brainstorming. Came up with a couple of ones that would be really good. Just stuff that I think would be lucrative and beneficial for me in my life and my family. In fact, if I had been more intentional today, I would have started our instrumentals off today with something from Lal Ravikant, because I've got a big idea on my mind that I'm not going to really talk about very deeply. The fact is it's a cool entrepreneurial idea that so, as well as 10 others, like I kind of spent last night working on that. Yesterday, though, I had a really good session with my editor. We meet every few weeks, and we discuss some of the poems that I've been editing on here, and it looks like some of them are going to be really ready to go. So I've got on one of these days soon coming up, I'm going to be finishing up just one more round of edits on the Typewriter horror poem, which will be a lot of fun. And then I will be able to get that in. And as well, I have a couple other poems that we discussed and query letters, working very slowly on getting myself to the point of being published is the dream here. So really, really happy about that. Alrighty, let's get started with some poetry. And I'm thinking I want to write about ideas today. Unless anybody else has something they want to toss in as a idea for a poem. I think going a little meta on this one is exciting. And we're also going to say a quick hello. My wife said, hey, people might not know about the dog. Where did he go? Hold on a second. Max. Oh, you're in there. Why is this not working then? Hold on a second. This should show my dog. I'm going to fix this. And my wife said, you should show people the doggo cam because they might not know that the doggo cam is a thing. And if they don't know it's a thing, then they're obviously not going to want to redeem the opportunity to see the doggo cam. Except it seems like it's not working at all right now. I want you guys to say hi to be able to say hi to Max. Well, that. There he is. There is Max. It's Max's dog. Right? Oh, there we go. Yep. He's not looking at the camera because he's thinking that he's looking up at me. But that's him. Cute little dog. Looking up, saying hello to everybody now. Seems like we got some choppiness on the video. But let's make sure that the typewriter camera is still working. Great. Great. So, well, let's get started back into some writing. Enough pupper silliness. Good morning, Telemoni and Dan. I'm writing about ideas this morning. I've been diving into my entrepreneurial dreams, for lack of a better word, which is a very weird thing for a poet to do. There's this, I don't want to call it a tradition of, I don't want to call it a tradition of like penniless poets or something like that, but there is kind of a little bit of that. So the idea that I've been thinking a lot about money and being lucrative kind of goes against the grain in some ways. And you got to be careful because it's not, it is a little zero sum on that. Like if you do think a lot about money, you start pulling yourself outside the artistic. But if you start diving so deep into the artistic, you don't think about money, well then you're not able to support your family. A balance like anything else. I keep reminding myself that I've got poems in my emails that I've got to check out. And we're going to be starting a little new feature on the show where when I'm getting interested in publishing a poem at a journal, I'm going to be doing some reading and some listening to poetry from that journal. So I'm going to be working a little bit on that, setting that up over the next few days so that we have some new content. And we're going to get back into exploring the world of literary journals, which is something I haven't done in a long time. A lot of times because literary journals can be very unintelligible. And thank you, as always. Really appreciate your support, Telemoni and Dan. Thanks again for the subscription. Two words, just messed that one up. Telemonian Dan says, honestly, I know exactly what you mean. I'm in the same boat right now with a career that I absolutely love and would never trade for anything, but lacking the financial stability to achieve any of my other ambitions. No, I totally agree on that. I'll tell you something. If I knew that my family and I would be set with the work-life balance that I have now, frankly, I'd probably take it and I'd run with it. I tell people 3 part-time jobs and they go, "Oh, Joe, it's crazy, 3 part-time jobs." But I love the task switching. Actually, I got to be honest. I love it. I love going back and forth between all these different things. I love the fact that I'm wading through nonprofit orders on one day and poetry orders the other day. It's like I've kind of joked with people that this house, this apartment really, but our family and her home is basically supported by 3 things: by theaters, by theater, by poetry, and by helping people out of poverty, which are 3 very, very worthwhile things. So I'm very thankful for that. But, it's a big but, it's not sustainable with the way things are now. My wife and I, we don't have kids, and so we're not responsible to anything like that. But the moment that we do, the income levels in the matter are not going to be sustainable. And I don't want to have lifestyle inflation, but I do feel like, you got to kind of get a little bit of an edge over what you're doing to be able to get the financial stability to do other things. But what was really good is I went through this period in my life, and I think this is the most important lesson I've learned, is I went through this period in my life where I did think money was going to solve all my problems. Like I had this, I wake up in the morning and be like, I don't make enough money. Money's got to solve my problems, And then not too long ago, I went through a period where I was doing pretty okay with the balance of jobs and income and things like that. And I was pretty happy with the amount of money that was coming in, but I still had a lot of problems. And it kind of just helped set in that money doesn't solve all your problems. And I know it's like the simplest lesson. We hear it all the time. Money doesn't solve all your problems. You can even get caught up in money could become the problem. But my life experience gave me kind of a hint of that. And so I feel more mature and ready to pursue lucrative opportunities because I know now I'm not doing it because I think money is going to solve all my problems. Because if you get into it for the wrong reasons, well, just off to the races at that point. So I'm getting into it because there's a couple of reasons why I feel like I'm trying to get into it. One is I know that it's a game and I'm good at games. When you kind of take that lighthearted, levity approach to it, that's a good way to start. And also, I like the problem solving, but also just that it's good to think a little differently about those things. But I definitely agree that it's a hard choice because I knew that if I took, say, the salary job and I was making $50,000-$60,000 a year, well, it would solve a lot of other problems, but then I would be doing what I love, and so it's always kind of like a little bit of a choice. So I'm going to be starting small with a couple of my ideas. I got this idea where I'm going to try to simply flip up on items. If I buy an item for $25, I can sell it for $75, and then I'm going to use that same exact $75 to buy another item, which then I can sell for a little more. And see how these things work. Test the waters. The one thing that I'm lucky to have a little bit of is time. Very blessed with that. So I'm going to try to make some of that time. But it is all about whether you're happy. That's the most important thing. Is if you're happy with the career that you absolutely love, that's a lot of value to it. And I think that even if you're just saving a little bit every month, then you come up with a few $100s. That might be something that you can do something with. I don't know if that all sounds blown up and blown out of proportion, or if I sound like a total jerk saying it. I always presume that the advice I'm giving is not the best advice. And I don't even presume it to be good advice to start off with because I'm going through it too. But I always, if anybody hears something I say and they go, "Oh, this man's off his rocker," I'm like, yeah, probably right. Fool Killers in the house, good morning. We're writing poetry about ideas. And I think that's partially where I've ended up is yes, I want to be able to make some money, but I think the exciting part is the ideas. Hear the dawn, the lo-fi artist with the instrumentals, has a song about James L. Teicher's idea muscle. And what you do is James L. Teicher has a habit where you wake up every morning and you write down 10 ideas on a topic. I've literally taken this, implemented it as a system in my life, where I'll wake up and I have like a plan out of what I'm going to do ideas on, and it's helped me solve a lot of problems. It helped a lot around Christmas time, I'll tell you that. I got some pretty good gifts for people. And speaking of which, I'm going to do my own little request here. I just got to find the song. Oh, come on. Get big. Oh. It's going to be pretty far down, I think. There we go. Tell Moni and Dan, if you're comfortable with me reading out your comment, I hope you are, and let me know very quickly if you're not. But says, see, I never believed that money could solve my problems. Growing up in a fairly poor household, money was never a motivating factor for me. But now that I'm at the point where I am now, I find that passion doesn't pay the bills. Living paycheck to paycheck is a high price to pay for pursuing passion, profit. Alliteration for the win. Yes. And that is why what I hope to achieve with what I'm doing, and this is an experiment, is I hope to achieve the fact that I get paid a little bit through my passion, and I do. I'm very, very thankful and grateful that I'm able to do what I do with the poetry and make some money off of it. But I have these other jobs as well. It's kind of a third thing I'm starting, which is something which is more like passive income. That's a phrase that I've been saying all the time. Passive income, passive income, passive income. What is passive income? It's money that you make when you're sleeping. And there's a couple ways you can do that. And the biggest way that most people do it is rental properties. Like they buy a rental property and they rent it. Makes you a landlord. You want to be a landlord? That's a good question. But I'm not even at the point where I could think about that. So it's more about how do I take a little bit of money and make just a little more. It's not. Yeah, and I'm talking and I'm hearing myself and I'm saying to myself, Joe, you don't know what you're doing. And that's good. That's okay. So, but I'm in the same boat as you, that I want it to be more than just I do this paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. Tab and I have been really lucky that we've been able to save some money together, but that's only because we're doing it together, and frankly, it's more so because of her. And so I want to be able to turn around what I'm doing and all that, and I don't know how that's going to end up. And so it's a balance. It's a way of, I wish I could do poetry all the time. I wish I could do this show for 2 hours in the morning. I wish I could give away the poems for free. But I have developed a system where, for the most part, when I'm on the street, I'm making sure that people are tipping me. I've developed a system where I charge rates at weddings, and so as a result, I have to force myself into that discomfort. But if I can manage to make this passive income thing work, then I could do whatever I want with the poetry. That's tough, though. Not an easy thing. And if I manage to crack that nut, I'll let you know. And I may not be able to in the end place anyway. And I think that change from living paycheck to paycheck is the big change. Is how do we change that? And that's a challenge that I'm still going through. I've just simply multiplied where my money's coming from, different places. That has helped a little bit because sometimes I have so much money. When I say so much money, it's so much different piles of money coming in that it's wow, look at all this. I can't live paycheck to paycheck anymore because it's not one thing. Wool Killer has said, help me settle something. that I've been contemplating. What is the best approach to artwork in your opinion? Planned, meticulous approach or more experimental method? Fool Killer, I would say definitely the experimental method would definitely be something I would recommend. Because the experimental method creates something in like kind of very similar to the idea muscle type of thing, where it's like you're throwing things up against the wall and suddenly you see something sticks. You can plan what you experiment. Like the best is a blend for me, but I would say the experimental. I lean to the experimental, and the experimental is a lot of fun. The thing about the experimental is that you need to have time to do it. So if you got one shot, like if you got like just one shot where you're going to be able to do something, then I would be more planned because it's more likely it'll succeed. But even so, I planned things out for a while and they haven't succeeded. So you got to be careful about that as well. Well, I hope that everything I'm telling everybody is helpful. We got a lot of talk this morning. Cordy19163, welcome or welcome back. I feel like I've seen your name before here. Says, go do sports. Kick a ball around a field. Nothing wrong with that. I love that. I have not. Talmoni Dan says, afraid sports are out of the question. Chronic knee issues that require 6 surgeries so far put a damper on that. Cherry Hazelnuts is in the chat. Welcome. Yeah, and we all have our versions of sports. Like, for me, writing is a bit of a sport. I love, I haven't been doing very good this morning in terms of quickly writing up a poem. But when I've sat with street poets before, sometimes we've done shotgun poetry. It's almost like it'll be a challenge and we'll both write real quickly. In fact, a friend of mine, this is going to frustrate me, a friend of mine came up with the best idea. And I don't know if it was called shotgun poetry, but basically what it was two poets we would all go live. A whole bunch of poets would go live. And then two poets would face off against each other. They'd each write a poem. And then one person, they based off of the tips that each poet got, one person would win the round. If the person won the round, they had to take a shot. And then they continue on to the next round. And eventually, someone would be basically not able to write great poetry anymore, and they'd be eliminated from the round, and then someone else would kind of come in. So two poets would face off with shotguns, says Squirty. Well, that's probably happened before, but I'm not literally thinking about using words to assassinate, but words are powerful, man, though. I know we're just jumping from topic to topic, but like that's the thing that gets me about like hardcore gangster rap. Is hardcore gangster rap is also a form of poetry, and so it's incredibly violent. But like that's what it is. It's an assassination with words. And so like we think, poetry. When you say the word poetry, you think of Whitman, twirling leaves of grass in the field, or Shakespeare in tights, but you don't think about Suge Knight and what he was doing. Like you don't think about that. Talmoni Dan says that's a fantastic idea, going back to the poets drinking each other under the table thing. And I yes, and that's what I told the guy, and he came up with it. Other guy came up with it. I might just have to run with it if he won't do it. Take idea ownership, if lack of a better word. And that brings us full circle back to our work of art that I've been still sitting on the typewriter. Oh my goodness. Oh, no, 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 no. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. But this is why I use these typewriters. So I went to hit the letter P, which works. But I hit the 1/4 1/2 key, and nothing's happening. So I gotta fix that. Cordy19163 says, why do you use a typewriter? A fantastic question, figuring it's what I do all the time. And I don't talk about it a lot, but I love it. I love the antiqueness of the machines. I love that the sound, everything, the feeling. It's also the only fully distraction-free writing tool that is left in the world, because when you get on a computer and you write, Facebook's a click away. Is it just a hipster thing, or is there a practical reason? Well, my whole kind of thing that I do, and where this kind of comes from, this is actually not my main thing. I do street poetry, and so for street poetry, I am often on a street with a typewriter writing poetry for people. It's the only way that you can kind of do street poetry, unless you want to try scribbling, unless you have really good handwriting, or if you have, I don't know, a printer available. So I have a collection of portable typewriters, which I use to do poetry with. And I also have other typewriters, and I kind of collect them, and I just like them. I guess you could say it's both a hipster thing and a practical reason. I have a lot of fun with it. All right, so let me see. Where was I on this? I was in the zone here, and then the key breaking totally just took me out of it. Tomoni and Dan redeemed, is he wearing pants? So I have to say, I am. So why is this a redeemable thing? It's because a lot of times I wake up in the morning and I go straight to poetry. Not a lot, but occasionally. And so believe it or not, the past two mornings, I have been showed up in shorts, and you guys missed it. So I am indeed wearing pants today. Cordy19163 says, it's a little ironic how explaining that it's a distraction-free distracted you. Ironic indeed. It does help to get off of, when I'm doing writing on my own, it does help to get off the technology. And another thing which helps a lot is the rewriting. You might think, oh, it's extremely inefficient. You should write one thing and then you should be able to edit it on the computer. And that would make sense for time, but I find that the more time I spend with the work and the more time I rewrite it, like people know on here, I've rewritten poems multiple times in the editing process, and I find that actually helps me with the editing process. But I like it. It's my tool. It's my baby. And I think we are just about finished with our poem. But welcome to the channel, Cordy. I feel like I've seen you again before, and anybody else that's tuning in, we are finishing up a poem about ideas. myself. All right. You have never been here before. Well, welcome. It's a lot of times I'm doing, and I appreciate Talmoni and Dan with the welcome as well. I take requests, though I do have to hop off of here after I read this poem this morning, because when I do the poetry on the street, a lot of times it's based off of random, spontaneous, personalized ideas from people. When I'm not taking requests, or when I'm not doing requests, oftentimes I'm just simply working on my backlog of projects. I've been working on a Typewriter horror poem that's going to get published. I worked on a poem that talked about COVID and the Confederate States of America. I kind of do all my this is like my poetry studio. It's a place where I do my work, and if you want to bring your poetry in, if you write poetry or anything, it's meant to be a open space for creation. I know that a lot of the people here in the chat have either requested or sent in their own work or thrown poems into the chat, and we've had a lot of fun here, so welcome. And to cap off this stream, I'm going to read what I've just written, which is ideas. It was going to be more of kind of an exploration in how I felt about my ideas, but it just kind of tended towards a really nice poem about the concept of ideas. I want to thank everybody that was in the chat today. Forchta, Fool Killer, good to see you again. Talmoni and Dan, of course. Cordy19163. I'm curious about that number, 19163, what the meaning of it is. We've actually done username poems before. We've had a lot of fun with those. LJ Gibbons, good to see you as well. And Cherry Hazelnuts popping in as well. And we had a really good time, kind of discussing ideas on how we kind of flow and work through financial challenges, things like that. And I'm big in for wanting to respond to what people say and having that be kind of a conversation back and forth through the chat. So I'm really glad and I'm thankful for everybody that is here this morning. This is Ideas. Invent. Not content with the pent-up energy inside. All is new, made unnew to beg us to renew. Make fewer and fewer the challenge of our existence. For the soul cries out for solution. God's light bulb alight over 1 billion heads. Energy machines, stars on the planet's surface when the sun disappears. Can we signal back to the spinning constellations that we have tapped into their shapes, forms forming in tool and code in our supernova burst to make our world our own? Ideas. I feel like what's present in there is the words I'm writing down are constellations on the planet's surface. Taking the idea of the spinning firmament of stars and reversing it to be the spinning firmament of a planet when you, like, if you've ever seen a picture of the planet when the sun isn't there, it would be, so like that, I think that this is a poem potential. Like, it's not a poem potential, it's a good poem, but like it's the idea behind this in it is something that I can form into its own poem. So I may take this. Stars on land at night, LJ Gibbons, exactly. That's something that kind of just came out of that. Thank you so much, everybody, for the praise. We had some discussion about names here. Cordy19160 says, my name was auto-generated by Club Penguin 10 years ago, before my birth. Telmonian Dan says username is just a college nickname. Fortune says my name was my inbound call center handle in the mid 90s. That's great. Discussion of names. I could write a lot of poetry about names and what isn't a name, but thank you again all for being here. We'll be back tomorrow around 7 a.m. I'm slowly inching towards being here at 7 a.m. I was pretty good this morning. Thank you again so much all for being a wonderful audience. And we gonna probably just kind of end it there. I am not ready to be able to raid today. But thank you again so much and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for the follow, Cordy19163. Really appreciate it.